Start streaming.
All right.
Okay.
Good.
Good morning. Hyvää huomenta. Welcome to the opening, the unofficial opening of RoboCon. So my name is René Rohner. I'm the chairman of the board of Robot Framework Foundation and your host today for that tutorial. And I will be there to, comfy money here while he is doing all the hard work. So I will be responsible for chat and so on. I will directly lead over to Manika Siriha, who is also one of our board members of the Robot Framework Foundation, creator of the doc test library, a very active community member. He's helping everywhere where he can and see some question that he knows. Big thank for that money also. And in his side job, beside the board work and all the support in Robot Framework Slack, he's a QA engineer at DB Schenker, which is a global freight forwarder, and also member of the Robot Framework Foundation. So thank you for that, DB Schenker. I will directly lead over to Mani. So Mani, go ahead and start.
All right. Thanks a lot, René, for the introduction. So hello, everyone. Again, welcome to our little tutorial. It's a stream, right? So this is my first stream. So now I'm a streamer officially. Cool. Great. So maybe a second career, maybe in the future. So today we do a 2-hour tutorial about reporting. Reporting, it's a topic that it's not exactly a sexy topic, I would say. Yeah, as engineers, we like to build solutions and automate stuff and run stuff, but reporting, it's not a favorite topic. But I remember some years ago when I was a young QA engineer, so no beard back then, we had a huge test automation project at our company with very expensive tools, expensive trainings. Yeah, so we spent a lot of budget into that. And one day my boss asked me, so there was a hot fix, and he asked me, Mani, do a quick regression test and tell me what's the status. And I used our $1 million tool. So this was a very expensive tool, expensive licenses, ran our tests. And at the moment I saw the results, I knew that I had a serious problem. Yeah. So we put so much effort into everything, but I knew I had a problem. The problem was I could not make any sense of the results. I saw that something was wrong, something was passed, but at the end of the day, I could not give my manager a proper response. What's the current status with the software? Can we release it or not? And this was back in the day when you did not run your tests daily, but when you have this very important test run that you do at once, and then you need to deliver results. And I couldn't do that. And that's what I realized. Reporting is something you need to really take care of. Yeah. And if you don't have reporting, I think it's like when you're being like an artist who's practicing every day, who's writing a masterpiece, who's putting so much effort into it, but then no one can see it at the end of the day because you don't have reports to show what you did there. So that's what testing feels like without reporting. So with that, we start our little tutorial about reporting with Robot Framework. And before we start, really, let's quickly review what type of reports do we have in Robot Framework, just as a refresher. So we have the report HTML, which is a nice overview of our test execution results. I guess most of us use that to share reports, have a quick overview. Then we have the log HTML. That's a detailed test log of all our executed tests, executed steps. That's the report I spend most of the time with when I need to analyze stuff. And then the stuff maybe not all people know. So we have an XUnit report. So this is a short report in an XML format, in a XUnit format. And this is often used to share results with CI tools. So it's a very, very short report with only a few details. And then 2 more things. We have the output XML. So that's all the test execution results in an XML format, in a machine readable format. That's what we will use mostly during today's tutorial. And then relatively new, the output JSON, or maybe, I'm not sure, René, maybe JSON is not the correct extension, or maybe output.rbt or something. So we have some results in JSON format now, right?
I mean, it's a JSON, but I think Pekka wanted to introduce a .rbt as a standard interpretable format, yeah.
Ah, right.
Or extension,
okay, yeah. So maybe we ignore the .json, but a new report in JSON format. We won't use that today, but I think this one has a lot of potential in the future. So that's what we have right now. So do we need more reports? I don't know. The problem I have sometimes with the reports is there are things that the standard reports don't tell us directly. You need to investigate a bit more to get to that information. For example, like what were the test results on the last run? Because maybe I have some past and some failed results, but maybe they were failed before and also like weeks and months before, and it's not so important that they failed. Or was the last run faster or slower than the previous one, or than the current one? Yeah. So that's information we have, the elapsed time, but it doesn't directly jump to our face like, hey, this run took 20 seconds longer than before. Were the test cases overlapping when they were running? Were they like running a lot of test cases at the same time or one after the other? Because this can also have an effect on the results. And also failures. So when you have like 10 failures in your test results, is it 10 different failures? Or is it maybe 10 times the same failure? This is a huge difference for me in the risk. Yeah. And also, is it a flaky test? So was this test passed before? And which test takes really long? Yeah. So it's all information which is kind of hidden, but yeah, you need to read between the lines, as Jack Black says here, to get to that. And this is something we can maybe improve with some additional reporting tools that we will have a look at today. So agenda for today, so rough time plan. First part is we will have a short introduction to the robot API for reporting. So we will look at getting and analyzing test results programmatically using Python, using the robot model. What we will do then is a short thing. We will create a MarkDown report for GitHub Actions so that we have a nice visual report there with the test names which were executed and stuff like that, just as an exercise. And then we will do a little bit of notifications. We will send notifications of our test results to Microsoft Teams or to Slack. Yeah. In our company, we do that in some projects, that when a test run fails, we send a notification to Teams so that people are aware. Then we will have a short break and questions and stuff. And then the second part will be about using Grafana for test result visualization. So Grafana is a monitoring tool. Typically, you can use it to visualize data in a lot of ways, and we will use it to visualize test results. And we will do so using a PostgreSQL database, where we will push our test results after the test run. And we will also have a monitoring use case where we push our test results in real time using an influx database. Yeah, so hopefully we are also done with that in 30 minutes. And then after that, we will look into a third-party reporting tool, Allure. So this is a free and open source reporting framework, which is language agnostic, which supports a lot of test frameworks. And we will use that to generate some reports for our robot framework tests. And then as the last biggest part, we will talk about ReportPortal. And that's a dashboard, or that's a system which allows us to create a dashboard for our test results, which has some AI support for the result analysis. So it can help you with the analysis, like what type of defect is that? And we will do a short use case for that. And then last, a few general reporting ideas. And I will also mention some other reporting projects from the robot framework ecosystem that are out there and which you could check out. And then hopefully some time for Q&A and discussions. So that's the plan for today. As I mentioned, you can always ask questions in between. So you can use the chat. You can also ask your question directly here. You can either raise your hand, and if I don't see that, you can just speak up. I mean, no worries. And yeah, so with that, let's go to the next slide. I prepared a little GitHub repository for the tutorial. I have all my examples stored there. I also prepared it so that you can execute those examples in a simple way at Gitpod. Yeah, so Gitpod is a service which allows you to spin up an environment and development environment in the cloud, install all the dependencies there, and then use VS Code in a browser with a terminal. And then you can run all the examples there. You can even spin up Docker containers there, which we will use for some examples. So I highly recommend to register there. You can have a free account which has enough capabilities, and then you can run my examples easily. So that's the link. I think Rene also posted it in the chat. So that's how you can play along. Okay, first, robot API. So that's the API to access the test results. So why do I mention that? It's much easier to use the robot API for reporting than using the XML files directly. The thing is, a lot of people see in Robot Framework, oh, it generates this XML file. I want to get some data out of there. So I use some XML parser and get some of the attributes and the nodes and the elements in the XML tree. Yeah. And I create some very weird solution. I also did that. Yeah. And try to get data out of the output XML. So that's something we should avoid. If you have solutions like that, it's okay. I also have that, but I want to go into the direction of using the robot API. So everything I show here, you will find in my repository in the chapter 01 result model. Now, why should you know the robot API? So there might be a time when you need to send your results to a different system, when you want to create a new kind of report, you want to analyze your test results further with some data analysis libraries like pandas, or you want to modify the results, and you realize there is no existing Python package out there for that. Yeah. So we had that when we had to connect robot framework results with our test management system. So we had to write our own integration. And that's where the robot API is like very helpful. And again, I can just remind you, when reading results, don't parse the XML file. Use the robot API to read results programmatically from Python. Now, when we talk about the API, let's quickly look at which points in the robot lifecycle there are options to use in API. Because a robot test run is like in multiple steps. So first you run your robot command in the beginning. And then there is something between that and starting the execution. It's a pre-run modifier. Yeah, so this is what you can do to use to filter your tests which should be executed, or you can add some additional test like from a model to robot, and then they will be executed as well. Today, we will not be talking about the pre-run modifier, but maybe it doesn't hurt to know. Then the execution is started, and then there's the next point in time when we can access the robot framework model or the API. It's via the listener interface. Now, the listener interface, so the listener interface allows you to hook into the test execution and do something on certain events. For example, when a test case is started, when a test case ends, or when a suite ends, when a keyword starts or ends, on all of those events, you can then do something. And you can access your current model. And this is typically used for monitoring purposes. Yeah. So we will look into that a little bit. But what we will mostly do is, after the whole execution is done and the output XML is written, we will then use the execution result and the result visitor to access and modify the test results. And this is typically used for reporting. Yeah. The good thing is, when you do reporting like that, after the test run, it will not affect the test run itself. When you do a listener and you send your results somewhere, then you might affect your test execution and might slow it down if the other system you send stuff to is slow. Yeah. So I would recommend to use that approach for reporting. Now, about that API, where to find documentation about it. So when you visit the Robot Framework org page, there's this docs section, and there you will find a link to the public API. And this will take you to a read the docs page. I see some messages in the chat about an echo. Does everyone have an echo? Can you like
all good?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Can you give a thumbs up if you don't have an echo? Okay, good. I see a few thumbs up. I was just worried that something very basic is wrong. Okay.
No, I think there's something on the user side. I think we had 2 of them.
Okay, good. So yeah, the documentation is there on Read the Docs. So whenever you're interested in learning more about the API, check out the documentation. Sometimes it's not so easy to go through, but over time you will get familiar with that one. And with that, so let's talk about a few objects we will use in a moment. So when dealing with test results, there's an object called the result object. And this is the thing which holds all of your test results from a robot framework run. You can create this result object with the cursor when I move it on the screen.
Yes, we can see the cursor.
Okay.
Had a short hiccup in the internet connection, but we can see your cursor. Yeah.
Okay. Also get a message that it's unstable, the connection. So fingers crossed.
But now it's good.
Okay. So you use this execution result factory and pass along an output XML, and this will create the result object for you. And this result object has a lot of interesting properties that you can access. For example, the statistics. So that's the number of passed, failed, and skipped tests of your whole test run. And you could store that somewhere or send it somewhere. Then there's the suite object. So this is like the root test suite of your run. Yeah. So this root, this mother test suite, holds all of the sub test suites below. Yeah. And this one is like your entry point to the test suites. And then it has a visit method. And this visit method is interesting when we later use the result visitor. So the result visitor will allow us to walk through our test results. And when it finds something, like it starts a test case or it starts a suite, you can do something at that point in time. So this result visitor is really helpful for reporting, and we will have a look at some examples in a moment. Next interesting object, the test suite object. So you remember I mentioned this root suite that you can get from the results suite. So this is a test suite object. And again, this one has a lot of interesting properties. It has a name, okay? Then it has an all tests, I don't know how to call it, generator. So this all tests thing contains all of the tests from this suite or the child suites. Yeah. So what you can do with that is you can iterate through all of your tests. So you can say, okay, 4 tests in root suite, all tests, and it will go through every test case, and you can access every test case with that approach. Access the name, the status, and whatever. Then it has this tests property. So that's all the tests which belong to the current test suite. So not to the children, not to the child test suites, but only to the current test suite. And it has other things like the elapsed time, so how much time this test suite was running. And it also has a status, passed or failed. Then to the last object type, the test case object. So that's what a lot of us are interested in. We want to get the results from the test case. So this test case object has a name which you can access. It, of course, it has a status, pass or fail, elapsed time, and also the tags can be accessed from there as a list. And then I was wrong, there's one more object, the result visitor. So that's the thing we can use to walk through our test results. And in the result visitor, you can this is an abstract class, and you can implement methods like start result, start test, start suite. And what you need to imagine this is like the result visitor will really walk through your test results. And it might meet a test suite along the way. So then the start suite method is being executed. And then you can do something there. You can get some information from the suite. At a later point, it might find a test case. So you have the start test method, which is executed. And then you can do something with the test at that moment in time. So that's a very powerful thing. To use it on a test, on a result, what you need to do is you need to write your result visitor like that. So this one just has a start suite method. And if the suite contains some test cases, it will print a message. Suite name contains tests. If it finds a test case while walking through the results, it will print a message. Okay, this test has the status, test status. Yeah. So this one would just print some information, but you can also use the result visitor to collect some information. And with that knowledge, this is already enough to create a little MarkDown report. Yeah. So what I want to do here in this little small demo now is we want to collect some statistics from our test run, the passed, the failed, the skipped numbers. We want to collect some test suites with their statistics, collect the test names and the status of the tests, and then write everything into a MarkDown file. So I did a little pre-video recording of that because I'm not so good at live coding. I will try to comment so you can listen or watch or play along. So we will start here by creating a new Python file in our repository. And from the robot API, we will import the execution result and then create a result object out of that. So we use the execution result factory and we pass along an output XML that I have in that folder. So with that, we created a result object. And now we can access the statistics of that result object. And this gives us access to the passed, failed, and skipped test cases. So what we could do now, we could just print those statistics. So passed, we do, okay, stats total passed. And we can do the same for failed, for skipped, and for total. So I was a bit lazy in the recording, so I copied a bit. But yeah, that's how you can access the total test case numbers of the run. And yeah, when we run that quickly, you can see it will print it to the terminal, passed, failed, and skipped. And now, yeah, let's access now the root suite of the results. So we say results.suite. This will return us a root suite. And you remember the suite object has this all tests generator. Now we will use that to iterate through all of the tests. So we will loop through all the tests. And then for every test, we will print the test case name and maybe also the test case status. Yeah, sorry, this window will disappear in a second. And I'm not sure what else. I think the parent suite I also added. Oh no, the elapsed time. So need to remember what I recorded. So I also add the elapsed time here. So the time that the test case spent during the execution.
Was the elapsed time now changed in the newest format, or?
Yeah, so that's why I have to use this format, elapsed underscore time and then total underscore seconds. I think the other one, just elapsed time in one word, still works, but it's considered deprecated now in Robot Framework 7. So I use this format now. Yeah, you can also get back to the suite. So when you do test.parent, you are in the suite level, and then you can get the name of the suite. And yeah, this is how it looks like when you print it. So just a little example how you get details from the test. And now we will do a result visitor. So we will do something to walk through our results. So we create a new class. It extends from result visitor. And we will start a method here now, start suite. So it gets 2 arguments, self, and then the suite, which is the test suite itself. And now we will just print, what will we print? I guess the suite name. So, okay, just a message that the suite has started. And then we will also implement a method start test, which will be run when a test case is found in the result by the result visitor. And there we will just print a message that the test case has started and that it has a status, yeah, pass, fail, or whatever.
Maybe as one short addition, because it was here in the question, which robot framework version. So here this time elapsed was specific to robot framework 7, right? And there were some changes, I think, in robot framework 5, where the body object was introduced. So before a test had keywords, and now test has body. It also has still keywords, but keywords is more deprecated. So body objects can be keywords now, but I think since Robot 5 we are more or less stable here. I think this was the biggest change in the past.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. I didn't know that this one does not work in below Robot Framework 7. I thought this was also in 6 or something.
I'm actually not sure. I just remember that there was something that the date time, so when has it been executed, and maybe also time elapsed, but maybe even just the date time are now datetime objects and time delta objects.
Yeah.
And before it was just a string. So I think there was some change.
Yeah, definitely. And
maybe
I think
just look the API up for this the API docs on Read the Docs. There you can see which version has what.
Yeah. I think what still works, if you just use elapsed time without underscore, just one word, this will still give you a string of the elapsed time, I think in seconds. Yeah. So, but this still is deprecated. So maybe in Robot Framework 8, this will not work anymore. So this is the approach for the future, I would say. Okay, so that's now the result visitor. And to use it, we first need to create an instance out of that. So we create an object, my visitor, and create it here. And then we need to use the visit method on the results. And we need to pass along this result visitor. And then when we start this Python file, the result visitor will be executed. And you can see here, so now the messages are printed from here. One thing you might notice, there are maybe more test suites in there than you think. The reason is for Robot Framework, every folder also counts as a test suite. So when you have your tests in a folder tests, this tests folder is a test suite. If you have another folder below, like, I don't know, a to-do app, this to-do app folder is also a test suite. Yeah, so this is a bit confusing in the beginning that every folder counts as a test suite for a robot framework. So that's one thing you can print with a visitor. But what you can also do is you can use a visitor to collect and store information. For example, a problem I often have is I want to get the test suites, only the ones which have test cases. So not all the test suites, but only the one which have test cases. So what I will do is I will create a result visitor with a list, suites with tests, which is empty in the beginning. And then I add my method start suite, again with the self and the suite object. And then I do an if, and whenever the suite has tests, so it has directly tests, I will add it or I will append it to the suite with tests list. Yeah, so I will add the suite in there. You might wonder why I do that. The thing is, when I now create this result visitor and run it using the visit method, this suites with test object will still remain and I can access it afterwards. Yeah. So here now I'm running the result visitor, and afterwards I can still access this suite with tests list, and I can then iterate through it. Yeah. So I can then iterate through every suite there, and then I just print a message. Yeah. So that the suite with that name has tests. Yeah. And this is a very powerful thing that you can use the result visitor to collect stuff and then later use that stuff for your reporting. Yeah, so here I just then printed the thing in the terminal. And with that, so that's already enough to now create our little MarkDown solution. So I will create a little MarkDown writer Python file using the same approach. So I will use the robot API and then directly import the execution result and the result visitor. And we will do that all using the result visitor only. I will create a result visitor called MarkDown writer. And again, extending from the result visitor class. And now I'll implement a method start result. Oh no, first init. So at the beginning of the result visitor, I will open a new file, a markdown file, into which I will write all of my test results while the visitor is running. So I just open a markdown file, just hard-coded name, report md, open it with write, and I can use that now in every function. Now I add a start result method, so this will be executed very much at the beginning and has access to the full result object. And there I will get some statistics and print them to my markdown file. Yeah, so I access the statistics object here. And now I will just write a little markdown table to my markdown file using the write method. And then, yeah, for a table in markdown, first I add a headline, hashtag overview, and then I start writing the table. And yeah, typing markdown tables is a bit annoying. So a lot of pipe operators. So first I add the column names, parsed, failed, skipped, and total. So then just add some lines so that this is recognized as a table. I see a question in the chat. I will look into that in a moment.
I can read it for you.
Okay. And so then we will write the actual results into that table using the stats object. Yeah, so we'll then write stats passed, stats failed, stats skipped, and stats total. And that's then our first little little markdown table that we have.
When you pause, I can give you the questions.
Yeah. I will quickly. Yeah.
Okay, so the question is basically about the difference between ResultVisitor and listeners, because it seems very similar to listener API, and when to use what and what are the real difference of those two.
Yeah, you're totally right. This is very, very similar. So if you know the listener, you will feel right at home using the ResultVisitor. For me, the advantage is the listener you can only use directly during the test run. So you do robot and then -- listener and pass along the listener, and then it will hook into the test run. The problem I noticed sometimes is, first, it might affect your test execution. So if you send your results maybe somewhere to a different system and the system is slower, it will slow down your actual test execution. Of course, if you have a problem with the listener of any kind, if this other system is down, this will also throw some errors during your test execution. Apart from that, there's no reason against using a listener. What I often like to do with reporting use cases is I want to complete the test run first so that I have my output XML. And then in a separate step, I want to process my test results and send them somewhere, not affecting the test execution in any way. Because what also happens to me sometimes is that my listener did not work as expected. Now I have my results written, but now to use a listener again, I would need to run the test completely again with the listener. Yeah. So I like listeners for monitoring purposes, if something needs to be monitored in real time, and also if you need to have access to the running model of Robot Framework. If you need to connect to the libraries during runtime, listener is good. But for reporting purposes, I typically avoid using a listener nowadays. But it's totally fine. I also use them for a long time in reporting.
May I add something?
Yeah, sure, of course.
So as you also said, the running model, you can manipulate stuff in the listeners. However, listeners do have limitations because when a test starts and the keywords are executed, these keyword objects are directly written in the output XML. And in the end test, you have a result object of that test, but that result object of a test does not contain all the keywords because they are not kept in memory. They're directly streamed to the output XML. So if you, for example, want to do test-based reporting, you cannot do the same detail of reporting with a listener than you can do with a ResultVisitor. Listener version 3 of new Robot Framework 7, Pekka will tell something about this tomorrow morning. There you can kind of capture every keywords, but it's not like easily on the end suite access all the tests and the keywords that happened in the test suite. So this is a clear limitation here of the listener API. However, if you want to, as Mani said, like a dashboarding where you send every time a test is done, you send one information like another one is passed, and you have an increasing number or something like this, then a listener is interesting. And there is something else as a question. So like, I want to do the opposite way. So I don't want to read the results of Robot Framework. I want to create Robot Framework compatible results and then create a log HTML or something like this from another tool. Can you say something about that, Mani? Have you created result objects with suites and tests from scratch?
I haven't. I know that Efficode, I think, created a tool, this Oxygen reporter tool, which allows you to create test reports from other tools in the Robot Framework format. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they also use the Robot API for that. So there's, or I'm not. Maybe you know more. I'm sure that this is possible. I have not done this myself, I have to say, but maybe we can look at the link from the Oxygen.
It works basically the same. You would not use this execution result factory method, but there is a result object that you create, and then you add a parent suite, And to that suite, you can add test cases and so test case result objects. You can add keyword result objects to these test cases. So you can create test results from scratch with that, and then also use output XML and ResultVisitor. And you can dump these result objects again into a new output XML. I don't know if you will show that, Mani. Like saving a manipulated result back to file.
No, that's something I don't have in here. Yeah.
Just as an information. So also the result visitor can manipulate this execution result, not only access it by reading. So you can, for example, filter also the execution result and throw away all the skipped test cases that you don't have them even as skipped, or other things that you can also do with Rebot. And there's another question right now from Chantal. Hello, Chantal. Nice to see you again. The difference between start test and visit test.
Oh boy, I just wanted to avoid that because I'm very bad at explaining that. So visit test, you need to correct me if I'm wrong, Renee. So visit test is executed when a test case is started or when it would end. The thing is when
maybe I can explain
need
it.
to help me. I'm very bad at explaining this one.
That's fine. So the result visitor, as you see here, you're inheriting from a result visitor, and that result visitor has already the whole recursion through the tree implemented. So there's a visit suite method, and the visit suite method first starts a start suite method, then calls the visit test method, and then calls the end suite method. So the visit test method calls start, visit keyword, and then end. So if you override a visit test, the parent result visitor will never call start keyword and end keyword methods. So if you, for example, would here, you could just use visit result, I think, if result has that. If you are not interested in the test cases and the keywords, you can just override the visit result method or the visit test method. Then you will not get called with start keyword or visit keyword. But if you want to have the test, the suite, the test, and the keywords, you always have to work with the start or the end. And the end will be, of course, called after all the keywords. So that's then a little bit order dependent.
Yeah.
But you cannot implement like visit suite and visit test and visit keyword. That will just not work.
Yeah, I would say let's discuss also after the call. Then we have a bit more time. I'm just looking at the clock, and we are way over time already. And I might fast forward this example a bit. Yeah, so he would just write our Markdown report now step by step. So now we first write the overall execution results into a Markdown file. So I create my result object again, and will now create my result visitor object here, and then use the visit method to use that one. And then it will create this little Markdown file for me. Yeah, so I will just run it now, and it will not return anything to the terminal, but it will now create this report MD here, and you can see it's some simple text content, and it's shown as a table. So mission accomplished. We have a small Markdown table with the results, and we will now extend to that. So we will now also implement a method start suite. So this will be executed when a suite is found. And what we will do here is, if the suite contains any tests, I will get the statistics of that suite. And then I will also write a small table for the test status of that suite. So I will write a short headline like suite status. And then we will write another Markdown table with the passed, failed, and skipped numbers of this current suite. You see, I don't like to type, so I copied a bit. And I can basically reuse the stuff I used from the result method. And now when I run this one, I have a markdown report with the results. But something did not work. What did I forget?
The ending pipe.
Exactly. Yeah, I did. I also noticed then after the recording, damn, forgot to add the ending pipes. So this is always tricky with Markdown. I did it here now very low level. There are libraries out there which will help you to write Markdown tables. So in my other examples, I will use those other libraries. So
I totally forgot that you're not live coding here.
yeah. So that's how it looks like now. Yeah. So now I have my little table for every test suite with some results. And then the last thing we will do is then add the results for every test case, and also write an end line. Yeah, Markdown is very how to say, it doesn't like to not have end lines after the table. Now I will add my detailed test results, and I will add this test results table now in the start suite method. The reason is I want to have the column names written only once directly after the test suite. Yeah, so then I want to have the columns for the test, for the status, for the elapsed time. So let's copy this line as well for the tables. And then we will implement a method start test. So this will now be run whenever a test case is found in the results. And there I will just write the current status of the test case into the Markdown file. Yeah, so I will just self-write and then 3 columns. And the first column, then the test name. And yeah, test status, and then last one, the elapsed time. And then our basic Markdown report is already complete. It's always weird when you watch recordings of yourself coding. You always think, no, do this, do that. Okay. And yeah, I think that's it. And another last one. So when the suite ends, I need to add another new line after the tables, because otherwise the Markdown code will not work with the tables. So after the suite tables are written, I will just add another new line. And yeah, that's it. So if I run that now, it should give us a nice little Markdown table. Let's have a look. Yeah, need to open the preview. Yeah, and that's how it looks like. So now I have one big overview at the top, then a little suite overview with the results of every suite, and then the detailed test results of every test case, and all in a Markdown file. So yeah, that's the basis for our GitHub reporting action. Now maybe just some sugar on top. Instead of showing just passed or failed, we want to use some emojis to make it look a bit nicer. Yeah, so I will add another small improvement that we have this emoji instead of the just pass, fail, or skipped. You can find this example in the 01 result model folder of my repo. So if you want to try it out later, just have a look. It did not work the first time. I needed to add a space between the emoji and the and the word pass. But yeah, I fixed that. So let's see. Yeah, so there the space was missing. And then it's also, when I run it now, shown in MarkDown properly. So as I said, check out the example in the repo and maybe play around with that after the tutorial. And that's it for the MarkDown writer. Yeah, I see some comments. The skip colored by red is too radical. Yeah, I saw other people who did use the different icon, and I agree. This maybe looks a bit too bad, like this big red stop sign. I should use something different. Good point. Question from Peter, a little bit more about Markdown generation. Maybe I will look for some syntax about Markdown, what it supports. The problem is that there is no clear Markdown standard. GitLab or GitHub uses a different way of showing Markdown than GitLab or Teams. Yeah, so there are some common things like how to print something in bold, how to do tables. I will look for some syntax documentation about Markdown and then provide it to you. Question about the recording. Yeah, the meeting will be recorded. You can watch everything afterwards. And if those reports can be imported to Jira, I'm not sure if Jira supports Markdown. I would also need to investigate. So I know for sure that Teams, for example, supports Markdown. So I will use this one also for MS Teams in a moment. For Jira, I would need to check. Maybe they also support Markdown. If they support something else, like HTML, maybe it's your first task to customize this visitor a little bit, that it writes HTML code for you instead of Markdown. Yeah?
But Jira in general does not support tests at all. So you need a plugin like TestRail, X-Ray, test management for Jira, so Sapphire or so, and those may support directly Robot Framework.
Yeah. Yeah, but you could post it to the ticket if you want to attach some like a comment to a ticket.
It's a specific Jira specific markup language.
Ah, okay.
But you can create that as well.
Okay. So far about the little Markdown reporter. So now you saw how to write Markdown files in general. And now the question might be, how do I get that into my GitHub action? Because the goal was to show this in a summary in my GitHub action. So in GitHub Actions, there is an environment variable called GitHub step summary. And this environment variable points to a Markdown file. And if you write some content into that file, it will be shown in the GitHub Actions summary. So as an example here, if I just on the bash do an echo and then write hello world rocket, and I redirect this output into the GitHub step summary file, it will render as shown here. And when I use our GitHub reporter, so like very similar to the script we just created, if I use my GitHub reporter here, and I pass along two variables, like or two arguments, my results file and this GitHub step summary, it will write the Markdown into the GitHub step summary and will show that as a report in GitHub. I can quickly see I have my project, I think, open here, and I have a pipeline here in my project. Oh, some errors. This is not, okay, pull request, okay. Wait a second. This was from the GitHub Pages job. Wait. This is it. So what you can see here now, my summary is, here I have this printed Markdown report in GitHub, yeah. And this solution is very similar to what we just did. You can find the example in the GitHub repo. and maybe also print some beautiful reports to your GitHub actions. Okay, so far, so that was it about the GitHub reporter. Yeah, you can find the examples in my repo. So the real GitHub reporter I'm using is below utils. And the example we just created here, you can find in 01 result model and then report result. So far about using the robot API to create MarkDown. I will directly jump to the next one because looking at the time, we are way behind of time. We'll speed up a little bit. So next one is about...
Just one addition. We can do more questions afterwards. Maybe if you're available, Money, in a newly created hashtag reporting. I think it's reporting channel in Slack.
Yeah.
So maybe Money is willing to create a huddle there, so that you can just talk there as well after this stream.
Yes, let's do it like that. If you have something urgent, put it in here in the chat so we don't forget it, but also use Slack if you are on Slack and use the reporting channel. I'm happy to answer any questions there. Now, sending notifications to Teams and Slack. This one I will do very quickly. So sometimes after a test run, we want to be notified. And I know a lot of CI systems supports notification via email, but nowadays we are all using platforms like Teams or Slack, and we would like to get a quick message. So I want to show you how you can do notifications to MS Teams or Slack. And they will look just like that here. So on the left-hand side, you can see a notification in Teams, which you could send with your reports. And on the right-hand side, you can see a notification in Slack. Little downside is Slack does not support MarkDown, so you cannot send like nice tables there. Yeah, so you have some limitations, but you can still do some nice notifications there. How to do that? So first, in general, you can create so-called webhooks for those messaging platforms like Teams or Slack, and they will then offer a REST API that you can use to send JSON content there. The problem is that every platform is a bit different. But I found a tool, a Python package, Apprise, or I'm not sure how to pronounce it. So this is a Python package which can send notifications to most message platforms. Yeah, you can send stuff to Slack, to Teams, Discord, WhatsApp, and it offers a Python API or a command line tool. Yeah, and you can just install it by pip install Apprise. And once you do that, you can use this Apprise package, and you can see here a little example in the code. So first at the top, I have my test results stored as MarkDown. Yeah, so I basically use a similar script like we did before, wrote stuff to MarkDown, and saved it into separate files. So I have like a MarkDown table in the run overview, and in a suite overview, I have some tables, and the test results, I have a table with test results. And now I'm importing this Apprise package, and I create a new Apprise object. And then I add the connection to which I want to send stuff. Yeah. And here I send stuff to a Teams channel. So this prefix for Apprise is then MS Teams. And then there's a specific format I need to provide to Apprise. I will explain that in the next slide. But basically, when you create a webhook in Teams, it will give you an URL with a very specific format. And you need to take some parts out of that URL and put it into the format from Apprise. We'll show that in a moment. And once you set it up like that, all you need to do in Apprise is use the notify method. And then in the notify method, you can provide the body of your message, so the message content in MarkDown in Teams, a message title, so the headline of the message, and then a notify type. You can post it as a success or as a failure. Yeah, and then the icon for Apprise will look a bit differently. In a success, it will be a green icon, and in a failure case, it will be a red icon. And that's how you can send messages with Apprise to a Teams or Slack channel. If you're wondering how to create a webhook in Teams, I have a little recording here. So here I have my personal Teams channel. And if I want to send messages there, I need to go to manage channel. And then there's this connectors setting I need to edit. And then on there, you will find an incoming webhook, which you can add. You can add a name for that webhook. I call it test reporter. And when you click on create, it will give you a URL. Yeah, so that's the one here. And you can then copy that URL, and that's the destination to which you need to send your messages, and then they will be posted in the Teams channel. A similar thing for MarkDown. So there you need to go to, for Slack, same for Slack. So there you need to go to api.slack.com, and you need to register an app or create a new app for your Slack channel. And yeah, you can also give it a name. I also call it here My Reporter. You need to create or select the Slack workspace for which you want to create that one, and then create the app. And then you will find this incoming webhooks here. And what you need to do is you need to enable the incoming webhooks and then add a webhook for your workspace. And it takes a moment. You need to select the channel to which you want to post. So here it's a random channel in my Slack workspace. And then similar as in Teams, it will give you a webhook URL, which we can then use to send stuff to the MarkDown channel, to the Slack channel. I'm always saying MarkDown. Focus. And now, so about getting from the webhook URL to the format from a price. So when you copy it from MS Teams, the actual webhook will look like that. Very long address. And now we need to pick out some parts of it. Yeah. So there's in a price, there's this name, team name. So this is the stuff you have here in front. Yeah. So for my company, it's dbschenker.webhook.office. For you, it might be a different company. So this is the team name. Then you have token A. So this is the long token you have here behind the second slash. Yeah, this is token A. Then you have this incoming webhook. This you can ignore. And then you have the token B and token C. And this is the stuff you need to take and put into this a price object here in the proper format. And then you can send messages to your Teams channel. And for MarkDown, it's very similar. Little demonstration how it would look like. So I will quickly open my workspace here. Yeah, the problem with Gitpod is the workspace always shut down after some time. So I now need to reopen it.
Maybe while it's opening. I think specifically the Slack notification is something that is really cool if you implement that as a listener. Because the biggest problem with a report is like if your test suite is running for hours or so, it really takes long until you get all these notifications, and then you get hundreds of them, maybe. So therefore, we implemented a Teams notification as soon as a test failed. We get a kind of a detailed report of that test sent to Teams. So and these data are collected during the test run. So yes, it slows down a little bit the execution, but you can do that also in a different thread, so that it just gets the information on the tests end test and then send it to Teams. And that was cool. So you can already start debugging or checking your test while the whole run is still running for some hours.
Do you know if you can set attachments to Slack as well? like a file attachment, like the HTML report. It's something I could not achieve somehow.
You can, but I'm not sure if over the API.
Okay,
But
okay.
we use Teams anyway because it's in that case there's a single thing that Teams can do better.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so here just the example from the Slack. So I put in some details from my personal Slack channel here, and we will just send test status from my results output XML. It just, again, just using the result API to collect some information. And when I run this one, I think I did not try that properly. So it runs, no feedback in here. But now when I go to my Slack channel, let's see. Here it is. So you can see here then my notifications that I just got. I would say we will have a short break now, even though we're a bit over time. If you want, look into the solutions in my repo. Maybe you want to send like a report to your own Teams channel. So you can find the notification stuff below here, folder 05 notifications, report to MS Teams and to Slack. Let's have a short break, maybe 5 minutes. I guess 1 hour, we're a bit exhausted. And then we will proceed directly with Grafana. Yeah. So short break. We'll be back in 5 minutes and then proceed. If there's anything, questions, just ask. All right. So then, welcome back, everyone, to our tutorial about reporting. And the next chapter is maybe a bit more interesting to a lot of you. It's about writing test results to a database and visualizing them with Grafana. And you can find the examples for this chapter in my folder 02 report to Postgres and 04 listener InfluxDB. I'm wondering, is any one of you using Grafana in your work? Maybe give me a heads up, or maybe a thumbs up or something. So Renee, okay. Or have you heard from Grafana? Or do you have an idea what it is? Maybe give me a heads or a thumbs up. If not, no problem. So I will quickly take you through Grafana, and maybe you decide it's useful for you if you haven't used it yet. So about Grafana, what is it? So Grafana is an open source tool for visualization and monitoring. So you can use it to show data in nice graphs and diagrams. And to do that, you can connect to a lot of different data sources. Yeah, so you can connect to PostgreSQL databases, MySQL, InfluxDB, MongoDB, Prometheus. There's a huge collection of possible data sources you can connect to. And Grafana is only responsible for visualizing that data. Yeah. So it does not store any data. It just gets the data from somewhere, and visualizes it. And it cannot only visualize, but it can also do alerts. Yeah. So what you could do is, if your test execution time is longer than 10 minutes, I don't know, for the last 10 releases, you can do some alerting in Grafana, and then you will get some notification from it. Today, we will only focus on visualizing stuff. So we will visualize some test results in Grafana. Now let's take a quick round trip through Grafana so that you know what I'm talking about. Now I will show it using my Gitpod environment here from my repository. If you want to do so as well, on the first time when you want to use Grafana and PostgreSQL, you need to start the Docker containers for Grafana and PostgreSQL. You will find those scripts here in the Docker folder. Yeah, first you need to create the network, And then you can run those scripts, start Grafana, start Postgres, start Influx. Yeah, they will start the environment for you. And once you do that, you can go here to your Docker extension and you will see those containers here running with Grafana and PostgreSQL. And now what I will do, I will open my Grafana container in a browser. So I will open the UI from Grafana in a browser so that I can take you through it. When you do that for the first time, you might need to log in. The username is admin and the password is RoboCon. I also put that into the repository. Yeah, so you can also check it out and run it locally. Now I have here different dashboards I can choose from. I will just go to this Postgres dashboard. And what you can see here is a lot of different visualizations. Yeah, maybe I'll just take a different version here. So we have like a pie chart with my test status, passed, failed. You have this nice chart diagram with the passed and failed status of one test suite, a table here with the test duration of different test cases, so you can see like what's their time like. I think this one shows the 10 longest test cases. You can do stuff like the test cases per time interval. So how many test cases are running in 10 seconds, in 1 minute or 5 minutes. Yeah, so you can do all kinds of visualizations. You can also zoom in into the graphs. Just a second. Yeah, so you can also, those graphs are dynamic. Yeah, so you can zoom in here to see more details. You can have tables here. So here I have a table about the failed test cases and also some information like how often did they fail in the last 2 weeks. Yeah, elapsed time per test suite. So you have a lot of different visualizations you can choose from. The test timeline. So you can show here like, did the test cases run one after the other, or did they run like all at the same time? Yeah. So a lot of ways to visualize your data. The reason why that is working is the data is stored in a database. So I have my test results in a PostgreSQL database, and I just use Grafana to visualize that stuff. So behind every visualization here in Grafana, when I go to edit or to view, I can see that there's a SQL query here. I know this is now very small. I'm not sure if I can zoom in. I will try. So you can see here in the table below. Now the scroll bar is gone. So this is basically a SQL query. Yeah. So select, passed, failed, skipped from a table, test run results. And then I also have some condition here. Just show me the runs where the version is matching to some variable version. Yeah. So what I can also do in Grafana is I can use variables, which I have here at the top. Yeah. So with that, I could say, please only show me the results for version 1 or for version 3. Yeah. So I can store different test runs and then I can select them using those variables. Yeah. So you need to know a little bit of SQL to use Grafana.
We have 2 questions. The one is from Sergey. Why do we need both dbFlux and PostgreSQL?
Okay, sorry, maybe this was a misunderstanding. Right now I'm using only PostgreSQL. I just wanted to add different databases just as a use case. Yeah, so I use PostgreSQL. There are options. You can also just only use PostgreSQL. So I have an example here for storing test results in PostgreSQL, but I also wanted to try out InfluxDB for posting results in real time using a listener, but you can also do everything in PostgreSQL. Those are just different options you can choose from. Yeah, so this is
second quick questions. Where do you take these visualizations from? Are they, do you make them your own, or are they templates?
Yeah, I just wanted to come to that. So you can choose the visualizations when you're in edit mode. from here, from the top right, so there's this huge list of visualizations that Grafana offers. So those are all included by default in Grafana, but there are also plugins which are being developed for Grafana. So they have a marketplace, and there you might even find more visualizations. But you can all find them here on the top left. I will also go quickly through the process of creating a new visualization or creating a new chart here. It also gives you some suggestions based on your current data. Yeah, so if I go to this suggestions area, it says, you know, you could also visualize this using this gorge view. Or you could also visualize it using this one. Yeah, so it also gives you some proposals on the visualizations which are possible with your current data. Yeah. I personally needed some time to get familiar also with SQL. Again, I can do basic queries, but I'm not so good with SQL. So there's a learning curve if you are not familiar with SQL. But you can start with simple queries and then extend. You can also use my dashboard as a basis. I have it also stored here in a JSON format, and you can import it in your own Grafana environment. Yeah. But that's just how Grafana basically looks like. Now, if I wanted to create a new visualization in a dashboard, just as a quick walkthrough, I just say add and then visualization. Then I need to select the type of visualization. I would just use a pie chart because I know this one and this is a bit simple to use. And now you can start entering your query here. So first you need to select a data source. I have two data sources, my PostgreSQL and my Influx database. I will use the one from PostgreSQL. And then I can enter my query here either directly using SQL code or using this editor in the UI. So it also tells me like what tables do I have. So I take something from my test run results table. And then I can select the columns that I want to take. So I take like the passed column, the failed column, and the skipped column. Yeah. So it will allow me to enter the query like that. And in the preview here, you can see the SQL code, which is generated out of that. Yeah. And if you want to be more free in SQL, you can just switch to the code view. And then you can enter the stuff here directly as code. And you can then try out the query here. You can say run query. And you can see here the results, the result right away. You can also switch to a table view. So if you want to see like in a normal database how the results would be returned, you can switch to this table view here. And you can see it here as well. And yeah, so if you know SQL, you can try out a lot of things here. I'm not so good with SQL, so that's why my demo will stop. You can change also the visualization of this chart here. So for example, maybe I want to have the legend on the right side. Maybe I want to change the colors of the legend. So maybe I want the failed tests to be shown in red. So you can just click here and then say, okay, make this red. And the skipped ones maybe yellow, even though I don't have any skipped ones here. And yeah, so that's it. When I click now apply, that's the new visualization in my board. Yeah. So there's a learning curve. You will spend a lot of time cursing. Why does it not look like as I want? But you will get there. Yeah, just play around. So let's remove this one. And yeah, I mentioned it. You can use those filters to filter results. So for example, right now I have different projects here, one for car configurator and another one, my project. So we can easily switch between different projects or visualizations, and you can use those filters to query only the data you're interested in. So that's a very short trip through Grafana UI. And now we might wonder, how do we get the results there? I will skip this video. So this one was basically the walkthrough I just did. So how to get the results to the database first? My approach is the following. So first I think about what data I want to visualize. And I always like to start very, very simple. So I don't start visualizing like keywords on the lowest level. I start simple with test status of a test case. I want to have the test case and the names there. I want to have some overall test run statistics and some statistics of the test suite. So very similar to the MarkDown report that we created before. Then you need to think about a simple table model in your database. And I mean very, very simple. Don't try to over-engineer stuff, because this is what I often do. Try to make a simple model. We will have a look at a simple model in the next slides. And then use the robot API like we did before. But instead of writing MarkDown, use it to send the results to your database. Then you need to add this database to Grafana as a data source. I can also show that, and then create a dashboard and create the panels there with the SQL queries. Now about the database model. So the model that I used in my example here, I just have 3 different tables. Yeah, one table with the test run overview, one table with the test suite results, and one table with the test results. Yeah, so the test run overview just has all the numbers of one single test run, like the number of passed, failed, and skipped tests, very similar to the MarkDown report we created before. The test suite results, now this one has the details for every executed test suite, which has tests. Again, the passed, the failed, the skipped numbers, runtime, and elapsed time. And then the lowest level I have is the test results. So the results for every single test case. So there I have columns for a test name, the status, elapsed time, and also some metadata that I can use for filtering. Now, one very nice thing about PostgreSQL. So maybe you know in databases, you always need to think about the data type for each column. Yeah, so is this an int? Is this a string? And for me, it's always annoying to adjust the database model when I need to add another column and add another one and remove this one, because I often change things. And I realized that, yeah.
Very short commercial break here. If you have not visited the on-site RoboCon in Helsinki and you still have a ticket for the online RoboCon, you must look the talk from Andre about the database library. It's not yet online. I will render it in this evening together with the one from Etitia. So sorry for that as well. It will be online tomorrow morning, and it gives a pretty good overview about what happens with database and types and everything.
All right. There's also another talk about reporting in general, right? About visualizations, if I remember correctly, from Alexi, where we're looking forward to this one as well. Yeah, online. Okay. So PostgreSQL offers this JSON column type. Yeah. And what's very nice is, so this JSON column type, I use it for the run metadata. And you can just throw in JSON content. But when doing SQL queries, you can access this JSON content like it was a column itself. Yeah. So when I want to select specific data from this metadata column, I can just say, okay, select metadata and then dash greater sign project. Yeah. So this JSON column here is completely available for your SQL queries. And that makes your data models very flexible, because you can just add some different JSON content in here if you want to have more fields available. Yeah. So that's very nice thing. I didn't know that before about PostgreSQL. Now to other.
question about kind of attachments or screenshots. Have you answered that already? I don't think so, right? No. So
No,
is it
no, I
possible
haven't.
to move or send failure screenshots also to Grafana or any other place there? Maybe show us
To
a little bit.
Grafana, honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there's a way to visualize them in Grafana. I haven't seen that yet. So I
I mean,
would say first,
adding them as a
no.
blob to the database shouldn't be an issue, but then
Yes,
selecting and showing in the front end.
yes, exactly. So adding to the database, no problem. But I don't think Grafana offers a visualization. But I can check. Maybe there is a
Maybe
way.
not built in, yeah.
Yeah. Question about test archiver. I will definitely mention this at the end. This is how I started my journey with Grafana and databases. But there's a reason why I don't use it. Yeah, for me, the data model was too complex that test archiver is using. Yeah, I had a hard time understanding the data model because they have a lot of different tables and columns, and that was too complex for me to create my own queries. That's why I switched to my own implementation. But test archiver is a great library. You should look into it. Okay.
Have you seen Josh about AWS experience? I think we can discuss that in Slack, right?
Yes,
So
yes. Let's do that
yeah.
later. I'm looking at the time. It's
Yeah.
we're already worried. Two little helpers are used for sending stuff to the database. One is Pandas. So that's a library you typically use for data analysis and data manipulation. So that's one thing we use. And the other one is SQL Alchemy. That's a Python SQL toolkit, which will make the interaction with the database very, very easy. Yeah, and you will see in the next slide why. The approach I take is, so first I read the output XML using the execution result and the result visitor. So I grab the data there using Python programmatically. Then I add that data into a Pandas data frame. So that's an object from Pandas. And then I can upload this whole data frame to the database using SQL Alchemy. And maybe some question signs. You might wonder, what's a Pandas data frame? So Pandas data frame is a two-dimensional data structure in Pandas, very similar to a table, I would say. So a data frame also has columns, it has rows, and you can, very similar to a database or to an Excel sheet. And you can do a lot of analysis there using Pandas and manipulation. But I won't do that. I will just use a data frame to store my stuff from the test results. And then with this SQL Alchemy, we can push this whole data frame just like that to the database. And I will show you some code snippets. We won't do any live coding for this one. Just to quickly take you through it. Yeah. So first, I collect some metadata for my run, and I store that in a dictionary. Yeah. So I have like a version for my run, a build number, a project name, and this is all stored in a dictionary and will later end up in the JSON column in my database. Then to connect to the database, I need to create an engine first with my connection string. So this is done by using SQL Alchemy. So here I create an engine for PostgreSQL, and this is like the username, Postgres, and the password, robot framework, the URL of the database, localhost, and the port, and then the database name. Yeah. So this is how I set up my connection to the database. Then I need to create a list with the names of the columns I want to have in my data frame. In this case, I want to store some test results. So I will have a column for the test, for the status, elapsed time, for the test suite, metadata, and so on. That's just the column names. And now I'm using the robot API to collect the results of every test. Yeah. And I collect them in a list called test results. So for every test that I find in my test suite, I add an item to my list. Yeah. And the item I add, it's another list, which is a bit confusing. So I'm adding one list to a list object. And this one has the information I want to store. The test name, the test status, elapsed time, the full name of the test suite. Yeah, so this is what I get using the robot API from every test. And now, once I have created this test results list, I can create my pandas data frame out of it. Yeah, so to create my data frame, I pass along the test results that I collected before, and I pass along the column names that I set here above. Yeah. So I have my data frame and I pass my data and the columns. So you might think, why do I do that? Why do I have to go this route with the data frame? The reason is, when I have this data frame, all I need to send stuff to the database, including the creation of the table, is this single row here. Yeah. So with the data frame that I created, I used the wrong name here. Sorry, I have a typo. So this should be test results data frame. I can just use a method toSQL, and this one will push all the results to my table in the PostgreSQL database. It will do the column mapping automatically. It will create the table, create the columns. Yeah, I can tell it, should the data be appended if the table exists, or shall it be replaced? The only thing I tell Postgres here, please, for the metadata column, use a type JSON-B. And this type is the JSON column, which is indexed, which makes the access to it a bit faster. Yeah. And yeah, so this is the way how I push results to my PostgreSQL database. And when you check out my repo, you will find the script which does that. I will quickly switch to the repository here so you can see what I mean. So in the repo, in the folder report to Postgres, you will find this Python script here, report to Postgres. And this will do the reporting. Yeah, so feel free to use it to modify it for your database. The database connection is right now hard-coded here, so it matches the one from my Gitpod project here, but just change it as you like. And if you want to use it, so I also added a bash script. So you just need to run this report to Postgres script with Python, and then you can pass along some arguments like the run number, the output XML that you want to use, the project that you want to use, and the version. And then this script will just push stuff to your Grafana database, and then you can visualize it. And I can also maybe quickly give it a try if that really works. So let's send the results once. Okay, no, sorry, my mistake. I need to go into the folder first. So this is maybe a bit special in this case. So I need to be in the folder so that script works. Yeah, and now just it pushes the stuff to the database. If you want to check the database content, there's also a PostgreSQL Explorer plugin here. And here you can also see the database model, and you can just query it if you are interested what's in there. Now it's not working. It took a moment. Yeah, so if you want to play around with the database, you can also do it from VS Code here using the extension. Okay, but that's about it from Grafana and pushing results as to a database. Feel free to give it a try and adjust it to your needs. Maybe one thing I missed to explain: before you can query data in Grafana, you need to add a data source. Yeah, so there's this section here about connections, and in there you will find the data sources. So I added here 2 data sources, one for PostgreSQL, and if we open that one, you will see you will need to provide the URL of your database, a database name, and then username and password. So once you set that up, you can use the data source and query it. Now what I will do, I will make this Grafana here public for you. So in case you don't have a running environment yourself, I will post the link in the chat here. And you can log in using a user RoboCon and a password RoboCon. Please don't use my admin user and change stuff, but it's only a temporary environment. So see if you can access the Grafana URL, and feel free to investigate a bit there, play around, look at the dashboards, and see what you can do. Okay, so that was Grafana. We are still at Grafana. This was about reporting results. Now we quickly talk about real-time reporting or monitoring using a listener and InfluxDB. Yeah, so for that one, you can find the code examples in 04 listener InfluxDB. Now I mentioned before, there are different points in time when you can interact with the model of robot framework. In the examples before, we used the execution result and the result visitor. Now we will use the listener interface during the test execution. The reason is maybe you have a long test execution run, which takes an hour or something, and it's on a remote machine. You cannot see what's going on, but you still want to be notified about your results when a test case ends or when a test case fails. And that's when you would typically use a listener, which does something during the test execution. And what our listener will do is we will push some results to an InfluxDB. You can also push it to a PostgreSQL. I just wanted to show examples with different databases. That's why I use an InfluxDB. And an InfluxDB, it's also an open source database for time series. It's a high performant database, so you can read and push a lot of things there. It's scalable, and it's typically used for monitoring and getting sensor data for hardware devices, for a lot of things. It works very well with Grafana. There's a standard connector in Grafana available for InfluxDB. And I just wanted to give it a try. Yeah. So you can, I have some code examples for InfluxDB. One thing which is a bit different in InfluxDB, you don't have tables there as in databases. In InfluxDB, the data is organized in buckets. Yeah. And a bucket, which holds some data, typically has a retention period. So you can say that the data is deleted after like 13 days. Yeah. So this is something you can configure in InfluxDB. And also you don't have columns there. Instead of columns, you have tags and fields. And tags and fields, they are all key value pairs. So when you have a tag, you have a key, for example, project, and you have a value, for example, car configurator. When you have a field, you also have a key value pair. You have a field with the name status or with the key status, and then the value test status that you got from Robot Framework. You might wonder, what's the difference? They are so similar. So the difference is that the tags are indexed, so you can access them very quickly. And what you would store in the tags is the data you would use for filtering. So in a SQL query, the stuff that you would put in the where statement. Yeah. So you can then select the status where the project is car configurator. So the things that you use in your queries, you would put into the tag. The fields, this is the stuff you're just retrieving that you want to show. Yeah, this could be a status, this could be the elapsed time. Yeah, so that's the stuff you want to visualize. Yeah, so that's the field. Another specialty is every item in InfluxDB is time-stamped. So every data item that you have has a time, I don't know, field as well, which is a timestamp. So every data point has a timestamp by default. Now, how do I get the data to InfluxDB? I just have some example source code here. So this is now a listener for Robot Framework. So this is something you can connect to Robot Framework during runtime. So when you use a robot command, you can say robot and then -- listener, and then you can attach a listener. Now, what this listener is doing when it initializes, it will create the connection to my Influx database. So I create an InfluxDB client here, and it gets some information like the URL of my Influx database, an access token that I need to use, and then an org. Yeah, so an organization is also a concept in InfluxDB that the different, I don't know, you separate by organizations. So this is what I set up. And I set up the bucket name into which I want to store my results. So I have a bucket name just called results. And then I need to initialize this write API. So that's just the stuff I need to do to connect to InfluxDB. And then what the listener itself does, well, whenever a test is ending, so like in real time, when the execution is running and the test case is ending, I post something to Influx. So I create a point object in Influx. Every measurement I take is a point. Yeah. So imagine it like a data point on a chart somewhere. So I create a point test result, and then I provide the name that I want to add as a tag. So the name and then the result name. And it's a bit confusing. So this is actually the test name. Yeah, I'm using the result, the object here with the name result, but this is actually the test. So I'm pushing the test name here. Then I'm also pushing the suite name. So I get the parent of the test and then get the name from there. So those are the tags, the information I want to filter for. And then the fields, the actual data. So here I'm pushing the elapsed time as a field, the status, and the error message in case there is an error message. And of course, as a timestamp, I enter the end time of my current test. So that's now the data point I created. And then as a last action, I write this data point to my InfluxDB. Yeah, and with this command, I send it to my database. And what I can now do with that, I will quickly show. So I will go back to my Grafana here. And I have a different dashboard here, Influx. And I'm showing the data from the last 15 minutes. And as you can see right now, it's all empty here. Now what I have here in my project, there's this folder listener InfluxDB. And here's my Influx listener, and I have a shell script, which has 2 robot commands, which will use that listener. So this robot command uses an argument file. It's also stored in the same folder here, this argument all. Yeah, so here you can see how to attach the listener to the test run. I use this argument -- listener. I need to provide the Python file of the listener and then some more arguments. Yeah. So I just have 2 arguments file because I'm doing 2 different test runs. And I will just do that quickly and then we can have a look what happens in Influx. So let me go out of that folder. So I will now run my tests with the listener. And now the test is running. And while the test cases are running, I can go to my dashboard and refresh. And now you can see the data here. Yeah. So the data is like pushed in real time. Yeah. So I can click refresh and I can see how the results are being added here. Yeah. So now I don't have to wait until the execution is complete. Yeah. It's actually still running. But you can visualize the data here directly. And that's why I use this kind of thing for monitoring. Yeah. So when you have like very long test runs running somewhere and you want to see the results right away, yeah, maybe use a listener to report the results. Feel free to play around with this dashboard in Grafana. I shared the link, and yeah, maybe you can use it for your project. Yeah, let's discuss maybe later more details. But I'm looking at the time. Really need to speed up. So that was the listener. I see the question about the link. I will post it again here in the chat of Zoom. So this is the link for the Grafana dashboard. It should be open to you publicly, at least as long as my environment is running. You can use the user RoboCon and password RoboCon. You can view the dashboards, Influx and Postgres. I also created 2 sandbox dashboards. Greg, you don't see the link? Wait, did I send it? You know what? Sorry, I sent it as a direct message to someone. I didn't send it to the whole group. Now, wait, this is username and password. I'm not so familiar with Zoom. Okay, I think now you got it. Thank you for that. Yeah, Zoom is a bit annoying indeed. So yeah, with that link, you can view the Postgres and InfluxDB dashboard. You can modify the sandbox here. Yeah, so if you think you want to play around with stuff, feel free to modify the sandbox. You cannot damage anything. Yeah, just go crazy. Yeah. Okay. So next up would be another break. As this meeting is recorded, I would proceed right away because I'm way overhead of time. So if you want to have a break, take a break and watch the recording later. I would now proceed a bit with Allure and then ReportPortal. Yeah. So next one, reporting with Allure. And you can find the examples in the folder 03 Allure. So what's Allure, you might wonder? Does anyone know Allure already? Maybe can you give me a thumbs up in the chat? Okay. Joshua, I can see you know it. Okay. So yeah, you know it, Peter, you don't use it. Okay. So some of you have heard of Allure. So Allure is a third-party automation reporting tool. It can be used for different languages and frameworks. So Robot Framework, PyTest, JUnit, a lot of different frameworks you can use. And you can visualize a lot of things in Allure. Yeah, so it will create a nice HTML report for you. So like Robot Framework, but you see it's visually, it looks very nice. You have some nice charts in there. And it's open source, so you can also use it freely in your project. To install it, you need to get it first from their repository. I think if you use Maven, you can also get it via Maven. Yeah, but I'm not a Java person, so I'm just downloading it via wget from the repository. and then you need to extract it, and this will then have some executable file, Allure. The other thing you need is a listener for robot framework. So to create results with Allure, you need to have this Allure robot framework listener. Now, when you want to generate test results with Allure, what you need to do is you need to run your robot command and then say -- listener, and then pass along this Allure _ robot framework listener. Yeah. And what it will do is it will create some additional log files. So it will create some log files by default in the directory output Allure. So there you will find a lot of JSON files and HTML files that the listener will create. So that's the stuff that Allure needs to create a report out of that. Now, when you want to generate the report, you can use the Allure command and say Allure generate, and then pass along the folder which contains those results. This command will generate the HTML report for you. And once you do that, you can say Allure open and then pass along the folder where the Allure report is saved. And this will then serve the Allure report for you in a web browser. Now, a quick walkthrough through the Allure report. So if you want to check one, I also posted an example in my GitHub repository. It's actually creating one with every test run. But I have a link here to a report, which I will also put in the chat. So I hope I sent it now to everyone, yeah. And so how does it look like? Oh, report not found. Great, awesome. So let's see. Maybe it was too old. Maybe I get the latest one. My mistake. I will put a new link in the chat. Yeah, I think GitHub maybe throws away the reports after a while. I will put a new link in here. But so that's how the Allure report looks like. Yeah, so we have like a nice pie chart with the test status. You have a trend of your test execution. Yeah, like you can see in the past runs, how many passed, how many failed test cases you have. You can have an overview of your test suites. Right now, I only had one test suite. And what else? You can also add information so that your tests are separated by user stories or features. Yeah, so you can add some text to your test cases so that Allure understands that. You can have some more graphs about the trend. So you can have a trend about the duration. So you can see how long did your past tests run. Yeah. How many defect categories you had in the past. So you can also add different type of defects here. You can have also a history for a test case. Yeah, so I have one test case which is failed. And you can see here on the past, this was failed, then it was passed, and it was failed. So you can also store some history in this report and have a nice timeline to also show you when was each test executed. So a lot of interesting data you have in here. To use that one, I also prepared an example, so you can find it in the Allure folder. So to run it in Allure, first I delete my Allure folder from before. So I want to get rid of the previous results. Then to get some history, so to get the past executions, I need to copy a a specific history folder from my previous report. Yeah, so that's what I do here. And then I'm running my robot command with the Allure listener. So this will now generate the new Allure files for me. And then last, I will run the Allure generate command. I will pass along this output Allure folder. So in this one, the data in the Allure format was stored. And then this will generate the final Allure report for me. So let's give it a quick try if that works. So run with Allure. So this is running now. It will now generate this Allure content in the output folder. So this is the stuff that Allure needs for the report generation, a lot of small HTML files and JSON files. So that's the stuff that the listener is creating. And then when the Allure generate command is called, it will save a report in my folder Allure report. Yeah, so when I now go to my folder Allure report, that's the one which is generated, and I can now view that report from here. And so that's it.
Does it mean, because you said Allure needs the history data because it's not a database, it's basically just a one report. So if you have a lot of history, it gets kind of bigger and bigger and slower, or
yeah,
have you
not
experienced
sure.
that?
Honestly, I don't know if it gets slower. Yeah, but about the history, you're right. You might wonder, how does it work? It's not a database. So with every Allure report, so the final report which is generated, it creates this history folder with some JSON files. If you want to keep the history intact, you need to copy that history folder to your new Allure results. Yeah, so to the directory where Allure creates the stuff from your listener. You need to copy it there. And then when you create a new Allure report out of that one, it will have the history.
It will include then, and then the new history will contain both.
Yes.
Right? So the very old, and then you can make it again and again.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah.
One other question that I have is, I remember vaguely that we talked maybe a year ago or so about the situation that it is a listener, and specifically for this here, because there's no live information at all in that Allure report in the very end, a result visitor would be much better. And you wanted to play around with like remodifying it to a result visitor. Any updates there, or?
No, I looked into it. So
and
there is
that remembers me again to make a pull request on the or make an issue for the core that you can replay an output XML so that you can just use listeners on output XMLs. I think that is a feature that is pretty important.
Yeah, this would be nice.
Kind of situations, yeah.
That's currently one downside. You have to use this listener. You cannot just recreate an Allure report from old test results. Yeah, you can only generate it on runtime using this listener, which is unnecessary. I think a solution with the robot API would be nicer. So if somebody of you is looking for a nice project, yeah, so maybe create something for Allure with a robot API and the result listener. Yeah, so that's shortly about Allure. Try it out here in my repository. By the way, if you don't want to use this Gitpod environment and you have by any chance a Google account, I also put in an example here in Google for Google Colab. Yeah, you can just open this Jupyter notebook here in Google Colab, and it will open this thing here for you. You will find a lot of the examples that I'm showing here in this Jupyter notebook, and it will run directly in Google in their Jupyter environment. For the people not knowing Jupyter, so it will allow you to run those single cells here as Python code. So you can click a play button and only run this cell. So I would recommend also check out this Colab link and then just run this whole notebook so you can see what it does. It will also generate an Allure report for you, which you can access, yeah, and also has some other nice examples. Just play around with stuff, yeah. So just as a side note. Okay, I saw a message about using Gitpod, but some authorization issues. Yeah, so maybe we can discuss that later. So way over time, so I will skip those few slides about Allure. I showed it anyway. And what we will jump to right now is maybe the last bigger block about ReportPortal. So for ReportPortal, you can find the examples in the folder 06 ReportPortal. And you might wonder, what's ReportPortal? Another dashboard. Yeah, so it's another dashboard focused on test automation results. So the other stuff we used before, Grafana, this is just a general dashboard we just misused for our test results. But ReportPortal is a dashboard made for test results. And it supports us as engineers with some automated failure analysis using machine learning. And this thing was created before this whole hype with ChatGPT and LLMs. So they have been using machine learning for a while to help us with the analysis. So it will allow us to visualize our data, to host our test result data, and also to analyze it using machine learning. So it can help us to identify, is this failed result? Is this a product bug? Or is it a test automation script issue? Yeah. Of course, it can't do magic. Yeah. So it does this based on some patterns, but it can help us a bit. Another nice thing is your full robot framework logs can be sent there. So when you go into the deep analysis, instead of opening the HTML files from robot framework, you can see all the log data also in ReportPortal. It also has an API exposed. Yeah, so whatever I can show in the user interface in a moment, you can also do so using a REST API. Yeah, so you can query it for run information and stuff like that. It has an integration via a listener for Robot Framework and also via the Robot API using the results object. So you can push the results in real time via a listener, but you can also push the results from your output XML after the execution. And the last thing, so it's open source. You can host it yourself on your own premises, but they also offer it as a service. So when you visit the ReportPortal page, you will see there you can book a ReportPortal instance from them via a monthly fee. I think it's not that much. Or you can host it yourself. I think for a pilot, it's good enough if you host it yourself, but it's not a simple product, I have to say. It has a lot of components. It needs like a database and an Elasticsearch instance. It has a lot of components. If you can manage to get it running yourself and do a pilot, do that. If not, just ask them for a trial version for these as a service, and then you can access that one. So let's take a quick round trip through ReportPortal so you know what it's like. I will quickly log in here. Is somebody interested in playing around with it yourself? Then I can also give you a user and a password. I guess so, right? I will just do so. Wait a moment. So this is the instance, the user. I will check it later if this one is really correct. User RoboCon, password RoboCon. Maybe you can try and give me some feedback. Okay, so about ReportPortal, what do we need to know? So it has different sections here. It also has a dashboard with some nice visualizations. Yeah. So similar to the stuff that you saw before, but maybe a bit nicer with nicer colors. Yeah, so you can have trends here about your test execution. So you can see how many test cases failed and passed right now or before. You can also visualize how many different defect types you have. So I have like 2 product bugs and 7 automation bugs. Yeah. You can also show the duration of your tests. Yeah. So you can show which test cases took how long. You can show the what is it? The runtime of a test launch. Yeah, you can see show the past results. You can show like this test case, how often was it failed in the past runs? Yeah, 7 out of 7. So this one always failed. This test case only failed 4 times out of 7. Yeah, so you can also see some past history. And yeah, you can split up your test project into different components and visualize them. So here, my test project, I have a component to do, login, and a component booker, and it shows a different health status for each. And you can even go in there into to do and say, show me some more details. And in to do, I have some runs for Chromium and some runs for Firefox. And it also gives me statistics for that. So a lot of dashboards you can, a lot of visualizations you can choose from. You can easily add new widgets here. Yeah. So you can just say add new widget. And there you have the selection of all of the different widget types. And they are all focused on test results. Yeah. So I think this is all what a tester maybe wants from a dashboard. Maybe one downside is you cannot customize or you cannot create your own types of visualizations. So there is no, at least I don't know of any plugin system that you can use here. So you need to live with the visualizations that you have here. So that's how the dashboard looks like. Then before you get the data into a dashboard, you need to create a run first. So when you send data to ReportPortal, it will show up as a test run. And I will quickly do that before we proceed. So I go into my project here, into the folder ReportPortal. And there you will find a script, run and publish. Yeah. And this script, so it takes an API key that I need to first add from ReportPortal. And then it does a robot framework call, and it uses the listener from ReportPortal here. And I need to pass some information to it. So the endpoint, so in my case, I use the ReportPortal as a service. So that's the URL. I need to provide the API key that I still need to enter. A project, in my case, I have a project RoboCon.io, and then a launch name. And in addition, some launch attributes. So the launch attributes, they are basically key value pairs. So I have like a key version and a value 3.0, a key type and a value regression. So those launch attributes are helpful to filter my test results later. So I can ReportPortal then set a filter which only then shows my launches for version 0, or which only show my tests for the regression type. Yeah, so this information here is good for ReportPortal, so I can filter stuff afterwards. So let's do a little test run here. So I first need to get my API key from ReportPortal. No, I'm locked out. Okay, just a second. Yeah, just a moment. I need to get my password first from ReportPortal. Have it somewhere, my key pass. So I see a question: how does ReportPortal distinguish between product bug and automation script? Yeah, I will show in a second.
There was also another question about restarting tests and then merging stuff together, or for example, Parbot and so, which would I think cause the same issues. ReportPortal is also again just a listener, no result visitor that you can run on a merged result, right?
Yeah, I think they have some option to also merge results using the listener. But what I used in my past project, I did not use the listener for that, but instead I used another script which uses the output XML, and then I just posted the merged outputs from.
Okay, so there is an
runs.
option to not use a listener.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So
and it's there. Okay, post report, then people can look to it. Then
yes.
proceed.
So I just copied that one from the official ReportPortal GitHub project. So this file post report, you will get that when you install the listener from ReportPortal. So in your Python packages, you will find this post report Python script as well. And this will just take the same arguments like the listener. The only difference is it can process an output XML, and then you can just send the merged outputs. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Okay. So I will quickly then post one launch, and so for that I need to get my API token. And I know I'm watching the time. It's only 8 more minutes, so let's quickly finish that one. So this is now the API key. I will now enter it here so that I have it available in my script. And if you want later to play around with it, just let me know. I shared the access. You can also generate an API key from there. So let's just send the results. Oh no, my mistake. Wrong script. Want to use the listener. Run and publish. Why? The risk of doing live demos. So now what's not working? Okay. Yeah, sorry, I updated the API key in the wrong file. My mistake. Let's exit that and run again. Yeah, that looks better.
So, nothing is better than good spelling error messages like Spectrave.
yeah. Right. Okay, so now it's running, and now you can see that in the launches table here, no new launch is being created. Yeah, so this is now happening in real time, and it will take a moment to finish. And now I refreshed it, and now I have here 2 failed test cases in this run, in this to-do Chromium. Yeah, 2 failed tests. And it says one is a product bug, and one it sets to investigate. So why is that? Is that some magic? No, I trained this ReportPortal a bit before. So whenever ReportPortal finds a bug that it cannot put into a category, it sets it to investigate. But what you can do then is you can train ReportPortal and say, okay, this one is not a product bug, but an automation bug or a system issue. Yeah. It also gives you some suggestions. So right now it says here, the analyzer suggests by 100% that this one is a product bug. Yeah. And the bug that I have right now, it's hardly visible because it's dark gray on black, but the error message is like 2 items left should be 1 items left. So some assertion was wrong. Yeah. And here in this screen, I can tell ReportPortal what kind of issue that is, and it will remember that decision so that in the next run, if it finds a similar error message in your tests, it will automatically categorize this as a product bug in my case. Yeah. So when you do this on the first time, it will show you a lot of to investigate stuff. Yeah. But over time, it will learn those decisions. So now I have an arrow here. It's more of a technical arrow. I know it's hard to read. So some locator was wrong. Yeah. And it also has a suggestion here. It says by 99%, this is an automation bug because maybe some locator is just wrong in my script. Yeah. So now I can apply this decision. Yeah. So ReportPortal can help me a bit in the decision making, and you can switch this auto analysis on and off. Yeah. So by default, it's switched on. You have different settings you can choose from, how accurate it should be. You need to look into that yourself. If you notice that you trained it wrong, you can also remove all of the training data. Yeah. So you can also go back in time. And yeah, I would love to discuss more, but looking at the time, we only have 3 minutes and then I have the maximum time used. If you have any more projects, any more questions, just find me in the Slack channel or in Gazertown in the next days. In the meantime, even though we did not finish all of the content, I hope you got some things out of that talk that you can maybe use for your projects. You can find all the examples in my GitHub repo. Yeah, feel free to clone it, modify, reuse, use Gitpod, play around with Colab. And I would say with that, I would end the session. I'm not sure, Renee, we have to also close the stream, right? Or can we leave the call open for questions?
We can close the stream soon and then leave the call open. On that point, I would really thank you, Manny, and I would like to open all your microphones and give a big hand to Manny. So thank you very much, everyone that wants to applause. Please do so.
Thanks.
So
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
That was really good, Manny. Thank you very much. I will now close the stream, and then you can still discuss it a bit. Give me a second. So bye YouTube. See you later.
All right. I guess you will use the same